we have to assume that we are. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Welcome back. This is kind of an in-between session that may or may not last an hour. Probably not, depending on how much time we each have. But I wanted to spend some time on walking through the opportunity solution tree, which is kind of where we left off last Friday. Feels like it's been more than a couple of days. But last time where we left off was we had a whole bunch of ideas. We had talked about I guess the initial context and the initial story of how the idea came to be. And one thought that I had was, let's map out all the ideas in one place and then decide on which things to focus on. So I took away some homework because I love homework. That's like my thing. So I'm going to share my screen and stop me anytime when it feels like
Oh wow!
it's overwhelming.
Oh wow! Look at this guy.
Look at this beautiful tree.
Okay.
If I zoom out, there are actually 3 different trees. The way I thought about it is like each, I guess, outcome is aligned to each user group. So the first one is facilitators. I'm calling them facilitators and not specifically teachers because I think
Got it. Yeah.
there's room for like non-teacher facilitation.
Absolutely.
Like I want to do this with my family, maybe. I don't know if my family wants to do it.
Let's do it. Yeah, there you go.
But I do. And then the other piece is like the players. And then the last one, I'm just calling business. Just there's not really much there, but whatever we can think of that relates to like product overall.
Okay.
I wish there is a way to like hide these things on FigJam. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there is. If there is, somebody should let us know. All right. The first outcome is I'm framing it as facilitators run games that support their learning objectives. Maybe it's their audiences learning objectives.
Okay.
So in most of these cases, we can just call them teachers because that's the primary type of facilitator. But as a teacher, I might want games that fit my specific classroom needs. And there's a layer of I guess, wants and needs to that, because it's like what's classroom needs. There are things like the tone and the format of the lessons, the curriculum itself, how long it lasts, because they don't have infinite time, and maybe like easy setup. So maybe this is too specific to be set up easily.
Yeah.
And then I want to support and track learning outcomes. So some subset of that is I want to see how each student is doing so that I can guide their learning more effectively. And maybe this is both talking about the same thing, but I want to help students strengthen their weak skills. So I guess the first one is more like I want to see how they're doing. And then the second one is like I want to make them do better.
Right.
Not make, but help. And then the last item here is, as a facilitator, I want people to be engaged. For this one, I didn't really add
no sub-opportunity. No opportunity for engagement. Got it. Loud and clear.
It's more like if it needs to have sub-opportunities, then we can break it down. But for the time being, I haven't added any, but definitely tweak this as we go, I think, as we learn. And then there's a whole bunch of ideas that relate to each of these opportunities. I put little green dots on where I think we can start for MVP. But I'd love to get your thoughts as well. But before we dive into the specifics on the player side, I'll just go through this quickly. And again, I'm calling them players, but in this case, it's students. But players are motivated to engage, grow, and come back. So as a player, I want learning to feel fun and rewarding. So I think this also relates to the facilitator want of like engagement. But for the most part, I've grouped them under players. And as a player, I want to express myself, and I feel like I'm repeating myself here. I want to express myself. And as sub-opportunities to the fun and rewarding, I wrote down, I want to start easily so that we can get to the fun part. So not too much like, this is how it works. You must do A, B, and C before you can get to the game. So one example of an idea is like, maybe there's a lightning warm-up round that doesn't punish them for getting it wrong. And then as a player, I want feedback and recognition so that I can feel motivated to keep playing. This is mostly inspired by Duolingo. Thank you, Duo, for being like a creep sometimes. But positive feedback and recognition. So things like, getting feedback right away for getting the answers right or wrong. Maybe points, highlighting top performers. As a player, I want to see my progress over time. So this is definitely in the nice to have category of like, how does it look like when people come back over time? So a lot of ideas around XP and level ups and like daily and weekly challenges. Maybe not daily, that's too much. And then under the express myself, I didn't know how to phrase this, but things like engaging with others in the group, like identity, like customizing what your avatar looks like, stuff like that. I just kind of lumped them here, but we can certainly move things around. And then the last one that I'm just calling business is really just, I just want to acknowledge that we are looking to build an MVP with the option to extend beyond it. I don't know what that really looks like. I'm relying on you for a lot of this part, I think. I added a few like preliminary thoughts. I have no idea what these are. I just did some like quick research.
Complying with the law. What have we gotten ourselves into? No, I don't know.
I mean, education, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
I know that, for example, in healthcare, there are like, the HIPAA and the whatevers. So I'm sure there are similar like guidelines and laws in different fields. And then I guess again, I put green dots on the things that I think are manageable to start. But I'd love to get your thoughts. This is a big info dump, I know.
Yeah, I guess maybe we can start at the bottom, just because that's fresh in my mind now. With what you said, you're relying on me on some part of the business outcome, and I'm curious what that reliance needs from me, I guess.
I guess, like, knowing that our initial goal is to just build something, and not everything. What are the important things to keep in mind if we want to enable the flexibility to build the rest?
Well, I mean, honestly, a lot of this just depends on our consistency and our persistence. Really, that's one of the greatest sort of like sources of, I call it fear, or just lack of knowing, uncertainty for me is like, are we gonna keep going? But one of the things I think in even the naming of this, where there's also a reason I wanted to kind of stay away from the kind of this like honey bee or bee idea. And I had asked you, hey, can we call it like honey pot instead? And part of the reason in the back of my head, and I generally I don't even like talking about these things, but is I would be super interested if if we were to persist, something like this could turn into like a suite of games for potentially educational style purposes, right? Like even back when B had communicated this idea with me, I was thinking along those lines a few things. One, which is, hey, how do we create sort of this B type gaming for not just for math, but for other subjects? But okay, like we also don't, like I said, we can also think outside the B in terms of where this could potentially go. But that's to me in my head is like so far off. And I question how should we even should I even talk about that kind of stuff? But yeah, in the back of my head, definitely it's like, oh, what if this could become like a suite of educational gaming type things?
How does that affect the decisions we make today?
I don't think it needs to at this at this stage. I would just want to be hyper focused on building something that we could trial in classrooms, and then everything else. So really, this is more like kind of Sparkle's future discussion mostly. But to me, I would just be like, let's get something built and out the door first, and then dream later. Okay, doing before dreaming. Oh,
that's a good principle.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel really strongly about this one, like just collecting data to guide the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. Like if you feel like none of the dreaming matters right now, I think that's a good call out.
And then the other question I'd have for you is, because you said in terms of the green dots is how we decide for a potential MVP, and my initial thoughts would be whether like what really constitutes an MVP in both of our minds at this stage.
I have an answer, but I'm curious about yours.
Okay, you want me to? So I mean, for me, it's like, and so like my initial instinct on like a V0 or a V1 is really to pare it down intensely, and even beyond what we might typically think of an MVP. I want to do even less than that. And the reason for that is like because getting to done is so difficult. Like I said, sometimes in our initial kind of zeal towards building something or excitement towards building something, we sometimes forget how difficult some of these things are to do. And so there's always the struggle of like keeping that excitement going in the planning stages and like planning enough so it keeps you excited, but then not planning too much that you don't end up building it or struggle later on. And that balance is, again, I've been there over and over in that cycle. And so my instincts, both in personal projects and at work, are like fewer. And to the point where I remember a few years ago at work when we were deciding on like building something or like what would be in the release, what wouldn't be. And I, as a decision maker, was like going through the list and saying, okay, yeah, this will be, this won't be. And when I sort of said this won't be for certain features, people audibly gasped. Because their assumption was, well, we possibly can't go live without this feature, right? Because it becomes this mindset of like, I can't imagine this product without this feature. And I was like, what do I want to go live? And so, because I'm trying to protect for like completeness, I suppose.
Okay, so what is your definition of MVP? Like the first version that we go live with?
Yeah, I think the first version that we can trial in a classroom, and that's acceptable. So for me, let me give you an idea of what I would exclude even from my own initial ideas, just to give you an idea of how minimum I'm thinking is. In my first description on Friday, I'd said, oh, maybe you upload a list of names. And I like that idea because I love the idea of like kids or, participants players knowing who's coming. Now it's planning, getting their mind ready, but I would not include that in a first version because it's not necessary for the game to be played. Like, what is the minimum thing that we need for us to get this into a classroom and get feedback from people using it? And they might come up with feedback that we already said. By the way, in my heart sometimes, like, I both love and hate hearing feedback that I had already thought about. Because I'm like, no, I want to be the one. I want to be the source of this idea. But it's also good validation where people are like, hey, can we upload a list of names? That kind of thing. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty aligned with that. And in reflecting, I'm like, let me delete some dots.
Yeah, so I think it might help. But instead of deleting, what I would love, because I always feel like a bit sheepish. I'm like, you don't have to say no to like, or push back on ideas. And I feel like I'm like,
no,
the pushback guy. But I'd love if we had a different color because I don't want to lose the idea. Like, I think there can be a green because like the delete also scares me because
Okay.
I feel like we're losing track of what you thought was important to you. And I think that should still be part of the thing. And then that might guide some of our next steps, or at least the next discussion of like, hey, does this still qualify for the next MVP? To me, each kind of release should be an MVP discussion.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, so I think I have a similar definition of MVP, which is that it's the minimum testable thing.
Yeah.
It should have a full experience. Like, it can't be just half a game or like the middle chunk or something. In my opinion, but I think there are also steps we can take that lead up to that. Almost like if you think about like 0 to 1, I think there are like 0.5 that like we can test the smaller pieces.
And there'll always be some kind of back and forth push and pull on exactly what it is. So even like, for example, theoretically, in a finalized version of this product, you would have like, teachers signing up, let's say, being able to create a game. Technically, none of that is necessary for a first version. Like, the first version just needs start game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like, and even like the last time I was like, I could probably start with building like teacher models and this and that. And, but all of that is like, in a sense, it's work that will eventually be necessary, but it's actually not necessary for an initial phase.
Okay. Do you want to jump on this Figma board?
Okay. Let me see.
Do you need a link or?
I'm just finding my way there. I got it, I think. I'm here.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay. Let's chat through the ones that I did put green dots on and see which ones we want to remove from scope. Not remove, like delay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, turn-based elimination seems like the kind of key basic element that's necessary to run a game. So that definitely stays. Pre-built question sets aligned to curriculums. The way specifically, I guess I would think about this is if we picked my sister to run this in her grade 9 class. One set of like maybe I don't know how many rounds, and I'm necessarily not thinking about rounds because I feel like it's worth putting initial time into building an automated set of rounds. And it doesn't have to be correct initially because these questions will be auto-generated. I don't like, I guess minimum viable could be using a fixed set of questions, but that seems unnecessary because it's so easy to generate a certain set of questions or randomized numbers. So I think that like a random set of questions that's configured to like grade 9 level questions, because we have a test audience.
So just add math. Okay. Are we thinking like, so just to clarify from what I heard from you, we're not thinking like specific questions, like we're not putting like the specific numbers, for example.
I think the way I guess I envision it is that there would still be templates. So we would create some kind of a X plus Y template.
Okay.
And then X and Y will be generated at the time of. And for initial purposes, like we might hard code things in there that keep those things at a grade 9 level. And I can kind of get some tests or, maybe get the textbook or some curriculum data for my sister to say, hey, like these are the types of questions they have. And we don't even have to have like an expansive set of questions. They could be pretty simple to start.
Okay. And if you see anything here that you're like, we should have this, definitely also. So,
okay.
Out of scope.
Well, let's quickly discuss one before it, which is the time limit thing, which is because what's interesting to me is here, the time limit was present in, I guess, the original version that they had, but I don't think it's actually necessary for it's something that I would like, but I wonder if it's absolutely necessary. It's not that hard to do either, which is sometimes I'm like, like if it's not that hard to do, I will try and sometimes include things, but maybe let's put this in a light green thing. It's like, and we'll do it if it's simple enough. But it's but I guess from your perspective, when you think about it from a mock-up point of view, and if you're working on that, it's something that you could actually include.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to exclude during building.
Yeah.
Upload player. Yeah, that would, in my mind, that would be like, I would love, I'm in love with this idea just for myself, but I'm like, we'll do it if it's easy after we've built a truer MVP.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll show it to your sister and she will be like, I'm confused on like how I'm supposed to manage 20 kids.
I would be like, you know what I'd say to that? I'm like, you've been teaching for 20 plus years. You don't know how to manage 20 kids without a list of their names? That's what I'd say.
Okay, fun idea. Definitely not in scope, but like it could be cool to download some sort of report after each game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also fun idea. Remember last time I was like, oh, what if like people have like a one shot, I think this is this one shot chance to re-enter by answering the question. And I was like, okay, what's better than one shot? They can earn their way back to to the competition. So they like can focus on the questions even after being eliminated because they might get a chance to get back.
So
again, out of scope.
But if we can discuss this so there's some clarity on what this means in my mind is, let's say it's round 1, I answer my question wrong. Now I'm sitting out there, and then in the next round, I'm looking at the questions, and you mean like if on my phone I answer them silently?
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking? Got it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I see now. I was like, how are they gonna like in my mind? I wasn't necessarily in the moment. I was like, you would have to have it in your own device for sure. Yeah, I mean, in my mind, anything that needs the students to have a device is like, like further down the line.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really like this, but I think we don't need to build it. Like you can just test it.
I really like it as well. I really like that idea. Just because it's like a mindset thing, too, right? Like just. I'm not a kid anymore, but I imagine myself being a kid, being like, hey,
especially if you go first.
I don't even get to like, Yeah, it's so exactly. It's so nerve-wracking. 100%. That's exactly the scenario I was thinking. Is like I just woke up. I just got to school. You know, what are we? I don't even drink coffee at this age, and now you want me to do math?
With the risk
What
of
is this?
elimination.
So, yeah, with the risk of elimination and humiliation amongst my peers. No, we're gonna do a warm-up round. Love the idea. Even, but this is one of those ideas that doesn't necessarily need like there, like you could run a practice round with everyone that doesn't like a no elimination round. So absolutely love the idea. Feedback for correct incorrect says yes. I mean, like absolutely. I would even go one thing, which is like, yeah, I'm just a strict MVP person usually, but here's where I'll deviate. Is I think sometimes adding fun is nice, and here I imagine like potential animations or sounds for either one, even though like, you know, technically my heart would be like, I'll do it later, but I'm like, nah, like it's fun. It's not that hard to do.
Make it fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like we have, you know, like buzzing sounds, like the whole theme is there, you know, bees buzz. And so I think that'd be cool for even like a trial version. It's also a hook, right? In my mind, it's like if I'm giving you a version 1, at least it has, yeah, some kind of like attractive elements that you want more.
That's a good point. Yeah, I've played a lot of not math, but a lot of like more party/casual games where the sound design makes it like 5 times more enjoyable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for kids, yeah, 100%. Highlight top performers, yes. I mean, that's simple enough to do. And I don't know yet in practice, even when they did this game live before with the slides, how winning worked. Like, I can't imagine you keep going until you have one winner. That might take too long for a class. But I actually don't know. And so, so this idea of performers and winners is something that we probably need to, like, I wouldn't necessarily want to get it resolved initially, because I feel like the teacher or facilitator should be able to stop the game whenever. At any round, it's like we're done, and here are the top performers for the rounds that we played. Right?
Yeah,
I think
I
that's
guess
good
it
enough
could be like
for now.
just whenever you finish, however many are left are the top performers.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's interesting is like I think end of game is a very murky concept right now, and I wouldn't even want to solidify it until we've trialed some of this.
When you're left, or whenever. Oh man, what is this? Okay.
So I'm just reading some of these because I haven't even read some. Shareable wins. Okay, that's neat. Yeah,
I really like this idea.
Sure, which emojis? Yeah,
but
yeah.
That requires
absolutely.
like player device, so I like this idea.
Yeah,
but also,
but I think eventually we'll come to a point where it's like, okay, you know, like we're ready for individual devices, and once that hump has been crossed, it opens up a whole slew of functionality.
I also like this. Like you can guess if the person is correct.
Yeah. A thought I had earlier as well is, though it fits into the concept of whatever we do, like it works with classic and trivia mode both. But I feel like for marketing purposes, it would be interesting to have something like a 1v1 type situation and what that looks like. And that's also, I don't know whether it's, you know, individual device, whether it's just one of those thoughts of like, in terms of kind of upping the ante and what that might look like. And honestly, I feel like it fits up top with like those 3 ideas maybe. or it's adjacent actually. It's adjacent to both. Like, but I don't even know what that would look like. It's just a thought that crossed my mind.
I made the mistake of adding
Yeah.
brain emojis, so now I have to add them each time.
At the mall, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Going back. Oh no, something's borked. Come on, Figma. No. Okay, I'll fix that later.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, are you comfortable letting it be for now?
No. Okay.
Clearly. All right, so where were we?
Here, around here. I think we're.
Yeah, I think all of this is kind of like additional things that get determined later. But to recap in general, like, because again, even kind of paring down from the discussion we had last time, now it's like, you're not even creating a game, you're not uploading a list. Literally, you're like going to some screen and pressing start game, and that's it. Like, you're playing a 9th level game without a list of students. And then you enter gameplay right away. That's, I guess, my idea. So somebody answers. So from a teacher's perspective, you would still need to mark answers as right or wrong.
Yeah.
So that we move to the next question. So, and then around, I don't know when a round ends. I think because
wouldn't the round end when all the players in the competition have answered the question?
Right, but at this stage we don't know. So I guess there's either that needs to be done manually by the teacher, or we need a number of students in the round in order to. I'm actually happy for it to be done manually initially, because then that takes away any kind of need for the app to know or have more knowledge up front.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think it also, it's kind of annoying if you have to like count heads when, like, if you've ever been a teacher, it must be annoying to like keep track, and like if you make a mistake, it's like, oh, how do you like correct that in the middle of a game? So
exactly. Yeah, and I do want to leave some room open for us potentially implementing this, even before our trial, if we get enough feedback, like what you said. If my sister was like, 20 kids, how am I going to manage it? And so I'm definitely, and again, my whole purpose for a reduced MVP is so that we finish it and even play with it ourselves first. Like, let's
invite
play
some people.
Yeah. Okay, love the idea. Love it.
Cool. I'm happy with where things are for today. I think next step, I mean, I'm sure you have thoughts, but in my mind, the next steps are like starting to do some design work, like even if it's just wireframing. I want to do a bit of a story map along with wireframe. I always find that story mapping is really hard to do without some idea of what the interface looks like. So I like doing that in tandem.
Okay.
But I'm happy with like what we've discussed today, and I'm excited. Is there anything that you feel like you can get started on the dev side?
I almost wouldn't want to until we have some level of wireframing now. And yeah, just the only reason for that being, I don't want to necessarily exceed or like deviate from anything. Like the wireframing kind of brings us into your favorite word, which is alignment, really quickly. And once we have some set of wireframes, I feel like I'd be ready to start.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I guess we'll do that on Friday.
Okay, all right.